Welcome back to English Starline. Two legendary warriors step into history. Two epic battles change everything. On one side, we have Spartacus, the fearless gladiator who defied an empire. On the other, Leonidas, the Spartan king who faced an army of millions. But who fought braver? And what can their incredible stories teach you about courage and English? Picture this. Leonidas was over 60 years old when he made his last stand at Thermopylae. That's right. Most movies show him young and strong, but he was a warrior grandpa. And Spartacus? He might have been a Roman soldier before he was forced into chains. Crazy, right? Now think about this. Would you stand against an army of millions with just 300 men by your side? Could a slave with nothing but a kitchen knife take down Rome's greatest generals? These two heroes faced impossible odds, but their reasons were so different. One fought for glory, the other for freedom. By the end of this video, you'll discover their secret weapons, their biggest mistakes, and over 25 English words to make you sound as brave as a warrior. So let's jump into the action and find out who truly fought braver. Part 1. The Highlight Reel. Now that we've set the stage, it's time to jump straight into the action with the greatest moments of these two warriors. Let's start with Leonidas and his legendary last stand at Thermopylae. Picture this: a narrow mountain pass, hot sun beating down, and a tiny army of 300 Spartans facing a Persian force so huge it seemed to stretch forever. The Persians demanded Leonidas hand over his weapons. His reply, short, sharp, and fearless: "Come and take them." That's the kind of bravery that makes your heart race. Leonidas and his men held that pass for 3 days, fighting with spears and shields, blocking the enemy's path. They didn't win the battle, but they didn't need to. Their sacrifice bought time, precious time, for the rest of Greece to prepare and fight back later. It was a strategic move, a king giving everything to protect his people. Think about that for a second. Knowing you can't win, but standing tall anyway because it means something bigger. That's the lesson here. Sometimes bravery isn't about winning, it's about making a difference, even when the odds are against you. Now let's switch gears and talk about Spartacus and his greatest moment. This guy didn't just fight a battle. He started a rebellion that shook Rome to its core. Spartacus led 70,000 slaves to freedom, and for 2 whole years they defied the most powerful empire in the world. Imagine being a slave, trapped in a brutal life, and then one day deciding, no more. It all started with a daring escape from a gladiator school, and from there, Spartacus turned a ragtag group of slaves into a real army. One of the most famous scenes, and trust me, it's legendary, is when captured slaves were asked to point out their leader. One by one, they stood up and shouted, "I am Spartacus!" They didn't betray him, even facing death. That's unity. People from all over, speaking different languages, choosing to stand together. Spartacus showed that weakness can become strength when you fight as one. His army didn't have fancy armor or years of training like the Romans, but they had something else: heart. They raided, they hid, they struck fast, and for 2 years they kept Rome's generals scrambling. The lesson? When you unite for a cause, you can turn the impossible into reality. So, let's feel the difference between these two for a moment. Leonidas was a king, born to lead, trained from childhood to defend his homeland. He died at Thermopylae, shield in hand, to protect Sparta and Greece. His bravery was like a wall, strong, steady, unbreakable. Spartacus, though? He was a slave, a nobody in Rome's eyes. but he lived to destroy an empire that crushed people like him. His bravery was like a fire, wild, spreading, impossible to control. One man gave his life to hold the line, the other risked everything to break the chains. Both became legends, but their paths couldn't be more different. Leonidas stood with his elite 300, shouting defiance as the Persians closed in. Spartacus ran through the hills with his slave army, turning kitchen knives and stolen swords into weapons of freedom. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? These moments are why we still talk about them thousands of years later. Before we move on, let's sneak in some English to make you sound like a warrior too. Words like last stand, that's when you fight to the very end, like Leonidas did. Then there's rebellion, starting a fight against power like Spartacus. How about legacy? That's what you leave behind, the stories people tell about you forever. Defiance is saying no to fear, and unity is standing together as one. Try these phrases too. Hold the line. That's what Leonidas told his men. Or break the chains. Spartacus' battle cry for freedom. These words and phrases aren't just cool. They're your tools to talk about courage in English. So, how did a king and a slave become legends? Their greatest moments give us a clue, but there's more to their stories. Leonidas didn't just wake up one day and decide to face 1,000,000 Persians. Spartacus didn't magically turn slaves into soldiers overnight. Their bravery was built over time, through tough lives and big choices. Want to know how they got there? Let's rewind their stories and find out what made them the warriors we admire today. Stick with me. We're just getting started. Part 2. Spartacus's background. Now that we've seen Spartacus's greatest moment, let's rewind and find out how this slave became a legend. Spartacus didn't start as a rebel leader. He began as a prisoner, trapped in a world that saw him as less than human. We don't know everything about his early life, but some historians think he might have been a soldier in the Roman army before things went wrong. Maybe he deserted, or maybe he was captured in a war. Either way, he ended up enslaved. Can you imagine that? Going from a free man, maybe even a fighter, to having everything taken away? That's where his story really begins. Rome turned him into a gladiator, forced to battle in the arena for the crowd's entertainment. But Spartacus wasn't the type to just accept his fate. He had fire in him, and that fire was about to ignite something huge. The big turning point came in 73 BC, in a gladiator school in Capua. Spartacus and about 70 other slaves said, "Enough is enough." They grabbed whatever they could find, kitchen knives, tools, anything sharp, and fought their way out. Picture it, a handful of desperate men against trained guards, breaking free with nothing but guts and a dream. That escape wasn't just a getaway, it was the start of a revolt, a fight against Rome itself. From there, Spartacus didn't just run and hide. He turned that small group into an army. Slaves from farms and mines heard about him and joined up. Soon, thousands were following him, people from all over, Thracians, Gauls, Celts, all united by one thing. They wanted freedom. Spartacus became their general, not because he was born a king, but because he showed them hope. What made Spartacus so dangerous to Rome wasn't just his numbers. It was how he fought. He didn't line up in fancy formations like the Roman legions. Instead, he used guerrilla tactics, sneaky and smart. His army would hide in the hills, strike fast, and disappear before Rome could hit back. One of his wildest moves? He led his men down a cliff using ropes made from vines. That's right, vines. They climbed down in the dead of night, surprised a Roman camp below, and wiped them out. Who thinks of that? Spartacus did, because he had to be clever to survive. He turned the land into his weapon, using forests and mountains to outsmart Rome's generals. For 2 years he kept winning, raiding towns, freeing more slaves, and making Rome panic. This wasn't just a rebellion, it was a shout that echoed across an empire. Here's a fun fact to blow your mind. Spartacus didn't have big shields or shiny armor like the Romans. His army started with stolen weapons and whatever they could make. Kitchen knives turned into swords. Sticks became spears. He took a bunch of untrained slaves and made them fighters. That's liberation, setting people free, body and soul. Rome sent army after army to stop him, but Spartacus kept slipping away. He wasn't fighting for glory or a crown. He was fighting so everyone could live free. Think about that. A man with nothing, giving everything for others. That's what makes his story so powerful. Let's add some English to your warrior toolkit now. First, there's gladiator, a fighter in the arena like Spartacus was. Then oppression, that's the heavy weight of being controlled, what Spartacus hated. Revolt means to rise up and fight back, exactly what he started. Guerrilla tactics are those clever, sneaky attacks he used. And liberation, that's freedom, the prize he chased. Try these phrases too. From slave to general, that's Spartacus's journey in 4 words. Or, freedom isn't given, it's taken, his battle cry for anyone listening. These words let you tell his story and sound brave doing it. Spartacus's background isn't just about battles, it's about a man who refused to stay down. He went from chains to leading thousands, from a gladiator's cage to Rome's nightmare. But his story didn't end with that escape or those cliffside ambushes. He kept pushing, dreaming of a world where no one was a slave. How long could he keep it up against Rome's power? We'll get to that later. For now, think about this. Spartacus wasn't born a hero. He became one because he chose to fight. Next, we'll switch to Leonidas and see how a king's life shaped a different kind of bravery. Ready to march with the Spartans? Let's go. Part 3. Leonidas's background. Now that we've followed Spartacus from slavery to rebellion, it's time to step into the world of Leonidas, the Spartan king who became a legend. Leonidas wasn't a man who stumbled into bravery. He was built for it, shaped by a life that was tough from the start. In Sparta, boys didn't grow up playing games or relaxing. They were trained to be warriors almost from the moment they could walk. This training was called the agoge, and it was brutal. Young Leonidas was taken from his family at age 7 and thrown into a world of discipline and survival. He learned to fight, to endure pain, to go hungry, and to never back down. Imagine being a kid, cold and tired, but told to keep going because weakness wasn't an option. That's how Spartans made men like Leonidas, strong, fearless, and ready for anything. By the time he became king, Leonidas was no stranger to battle. He wasn't just a ruler sitting on a throne. He was a soldier first, leading his men with a shield in hand. His big moment came in 480 BC, when the Persian Empire, led by King Xerxes, invaded Greece. The Persians had an army so massive, some say millions, that it seemed unbeatable. They wanted to crush Greece and make it part of their empire. Leonidas wasn't about to let that happen. He took 300 of his best Spartan warriors, plus a few thousand allies, and marched to a narrow pass called Thermopylae. Why there? The geography was perfect. A tight space between cliffs and the sea where numbers didn't matter as much as skill. Leonidas knew his small force could hold the Persians back, at least for a while. It was a king's duty to protect his people, and he was ready to do it, no matter the cost. Picture the scene. Leonidas and his Spartans standing shoulder to shoulder, shields locked in a tight formation called a phalanx. That's when soldiers line up close like a human wall, spears pointing out to stop the enemy. The Persians came wave after wave, but the Spartans didn't budge. For 3 days they fought, outnumbered, exhausted, but never broken. Here's a wild fact. Spartan mothers had a saying for their sons going to war: return with your shield or on it. That meant come back victorious or die trying. There was no running away. Leonidas lived that code. When a traitor showed the Persians a secret path around the pass, the battle turned hopeless. Most of his allies left, but Leonidas stayed with his 300. He knew they'd lose, but he also knew their stand would inspire Greece to keep fighting. That's sacrifice, giving your life so others can win later. Leonidas didn't fight for freedom like Spartacus. He fought for honor and his homeland. Sparta was a place obsessed with glory, where being a warrior was everything. As king, he carried that weight. He wasn't young either. Over 60 years old with gray hair under his helmet, but still swinging his sword like a man half his age. That's discipline, forged over decades of training. His men trusted him because he led by example, standing in the front line, not hiding behind them. When the end came, he died with his Spartans, surrounded by enemies, but his name lived on. Greece didn't fall to Persia, thanks in part to the time he bought. That's what makes Leonidas a legend. Not just the fight, but what it stood for. Let's grab some English words to sound like a Spartan now. First, there's phalanx, that tight formation Leonidas used. Then, honor code, the rules Spartans lived by, putting duty above everything. Sacrifice is giving up something big, like Leonidas did. Discipline means training hard and staying strong, and legend is what he became. Try these phrases. Outnumbered but never outmatched. That's Leonidas facing millions. Or, a king's duty is to his people, his reason for fighting. These words let you talk about his bravery in English. Leonidas's background is all about a life built for one purpose: defending Sparta. From the Agagi to Thermopylae, he was shaped into a warrior who'd rather die than surrender. His story isn't about breaking free, it's about standing firm. How does that compare to Spartacus? We'll find out soon when we dig into their leadership styles. For now, think about this. Leonidas chose a king's death to save his land. What would you choose? Next up, we're comparing these two head-to-head. Get ready. Part 4. Leadership. We've seen how Spartacus and Leonidas became legends, but now it's time to compare them head-to-head, starting with leadership. These two warriors led in totally different ways, shaped by who they were and what they fought for. Let's kick things off with Leonidas, the Spartan king. Leonidas was born to lead. He grew up in a world where order and strength ruled everything. As king, he commanded an elite group of 300 Spartans, men trained from childhood to be the best warriors around. His leadership was all about a strict hierarchy, where everyone knew their place. Imagine a line of soldiers, shields locked, moving as one because they trusted their king completely. Leonidas didn't just tell his men what to do, he stood with them, spear in hand, showing them how it's done. At Thermopylae, he didn't sit back and watch. He was right there in the phalanx, shouting orders, keeping everyone steady as the Persians charged. That's what made his men follow him to the end. They knew he'd never ask them to do something he wouldn't do himself. Leonidas's leadership wasn't about big speeches or wild ideas. It was about discipline and loyalty. Spartans were raised to obey, to fight as a team, and to put Sparta above everything. When he said, "Come and take them," to the Persians, it wasn't just bravado. It was a signal to his men. We don't bend, we don't break. He kept them focused, even when they were surrounded and the end was near. His strategy was simple but smart. Hold the narrow pass, use the terrain, and make every Spartan count. He didn't need to inspire them with fancy words. They were already forged into warriors by Sparta's tough system. Leonidas led by example, and that example was a king who'd die before he'd run. Think about that. A leader so steady his men stayed with him, even knowing they'd lose. That's the power of trust built over years. Now let's flip to Spartacus. His leadership was a whole different story. Spartacus wasn't born a king or trained to rule. He was a slave, a gladiator, a man with nothing but his will to fight. Yet he united thousands, 70,000 slaves from all over, speaking different languages, with no training or weapons to start. How did he do it? He inspired them. Picture him standing in a dusty camp, surrounded by people who'd been beaten down their whole lives. He didn't have a crown or an army handed to him. He had to build it from scratch. These weren't elite soldiers. They were farmers, cooks, miners, all desperate for freedom. Spartacus gave them something to believe in, a chance to break their chains. He didn't lead with a strict hierarchy like Leonidas. His army was messy, chaotic, but alive with hope. He turned that chaos into strength by trusting his people and letting them fight their way. Spartacus's leadership was about diversity. He brought together Thracians, Gauls, Celts, people who'd never met before, and made them one. When he escaped that gladiator school with 70 others, he didn't just run, he rallied. Every victory, every freed slave added to his army. He wasn't barking orders from the back. He was in the thick of it, showing them they could win. His strategy wasn't about holding a line. It was about moving fast, hitting Rome where it hurt, and keeping the dream alive. That moment when his men shouted, "I am Spartacus," wasn't planned. It was pure loyalty, born from a leader who cared. He didn't have Sparta's training or Leonidas's resources, but he had heart. He took weakness and made it power, proving leadership isn't about where you start, it's about what you inspire. Let's grab some English to talk like a leader now. Hierarchy is that clear order Leonidas used. King, soldiers, everyone in line. Loyalty is sticking with your leader, like the Spartans did. Inspire means lighting a fire in people, like Spartacus with his slaves. Strategy is the smart plan behind the fight, and trust is what holds it all together. Try these phrases. Lead by example. That's Leonidas in the front line. Or strength in diversity. Spartacus uniting his army. These words let you sound like you're commanding a battle. So, Leonidas led with order and steel, Spartacus with passion and hope. One was a king holding a line, the other a slave building a movement. Both worked. Leonidas delayed an empire, Spartacus shook one. Which style is braver? That's for you to decide. Next, we'll compare their battles. Get ready for spears, knives, and some serious action. Part 5. Battles. We've compared their leadership, but now it's time to see Spartacus and Leonidas in action. Let's talk battles. These two warriors didn't just lead, they fought, and how they fought tells us a lot about their bravery. First up, Leonidas and his stand at Thermopylae. Picture this: a narrow pass, cliffs on one side, the sea on the other, and 300 Spartans facing a Persian army so big it darkened the horizon. Leonidas didn't hide or run. He chose open battle, the kind where you see your enemy coming. His Spartans used spears and shields, locking into that tight phalanx formation we talked about. They stood like a wall, stabbing and pushing back wave after wave of Persians. For 3 days they held that pass, fighting face to face, blood and sweat mixing in the dirt. It wasn't sneaky or fancy. It was raw, brutal, and bold. Leonidas picked that spot because the terrain made numbers less important. 1,000,000 Persians couldn't all attack at once in that tight space, so his 300 could shine. That's smart fighting, using what you've got to even the odds. Leonidas's battles were about strength and staying power. His men were trained for this, drilled to hold their ground no matter what. They didn't dodge or retreat. They met the enemy head-on. Even when arrows rained down, Persians loved their archers. The Spartans raised their shields and kept going. The goal wasn't to win outright. It was to slow the Persians down, to buy time for Greece. And they did. When a traitor showed the Persians a way around, Leonidas could have left, but he stayed. He fought to the last man, spears breaking, shields dented until the end. That's persistence, standing tall even when you know it's over. His battle style was like him, direct, disciplined, and fearless. It's the kind of fight you feel in your bones, outnumbered, but never outmatched. Now, let's switch to Spartacus. His battles were a whole different game. Spartacus didn't have a king's army or a perfect battleground. He had slaves with stolen weapons, knives, pitchforks, anything they could grab. So he fought smart, not hard. His style? Hit-and-run raids, fast and tricky. Picture his army hiding in the hills, watching Roman legions march by, all shiny and proud telltale signs of exhaustion, like those vine ropes he used to climb cliffs. Spartacus didn't wait for Rome to come to him. He struck first. He'd ambush Roman camps at night, set fires to cause chaos, then vanish before they could fight back. One time he even turned a forest into a trap, luring Romans in and cutting them down. He adapted to whatever he faced: mountains, rivers, open fields, using the land like a weapon. His battles weren't about standing still. They were about moving, striking, and surviving. With every raid, he freed more slaves, growing his army on the go. Spartacus's battles showed how resourceful he was. He didn't have Spartan training or heavy armor, just guts and quick thinking. He'd use fire to scare horses, or roll logs downhill to smash Roman lines. His men weren't perfect soldiers, but they were desperate, and he made that desperation a strength. While Leonidas fought one big doomed stand, Spartacus kept Rome guessing for 2 years, winning small victories that added up. His persistence wasn't about holding a line, it was about never giving up, hitting again and again until Rome couldn't ignore him. That's fighting smarter, turning weakness into power with every surprise attack. Let's grab some English to sound battle-ready. Ambush is that sudden attack Spartacus loved, like jumping out from the bushes. Terrain is the land you fight on, key for both warriors. Adapt means changing your plan, like Spartacus did every raid. Resourceful is using what you've got, and persistence is keeping going no matter what. Try these phrases. Fight smarter, not harder, Spartacus way. Or, turn weakness into strength, his battle cry. These words make you sound like a warrior. Leonidas fought with spears and shields, Spartacus with knives and fire. One was a king in a last stand, the other a slave on the run. Leonidas's battles were loud and proud, Spartacus's were quiet and deadly. Both were brave, but in opposite ways, standing firm versus striking fast. Which takes more courage? That's up to you. Next, we'll look at their legacies. What they left behind still echoes today. Part 6. Legacy. We've seen their leadership and their battles, but now it's time to look at what Spartacus and Leonidas left behind. Their legacies. A legacy is more than just a story. It's how you change the world after you're gone. Let's start with Leonidas, the Spartan king. When he died at Thermopylae with his 300, he didn't just lose a battle, he became a symbol. His last stand wasn't about winning right then. It was about showing Greece what it meant to fight for home. And it worked. His sacrifice gave the Greeks time to regroup, and later, they beat the Persians at sea and on land. Leonidas became an icon of patriotism, someone who loved his country so much he'd give everything for it. In Sparta, they didn't mourn him as a loser. They honored him as a hero. His name echoed through the ages, a reminder that standing up, even against impossible odds, can inspire others to keep going. But here's the twist. Sparta didn't last forever. Years after Leonidas, it faded. Wars, rivals, and time wore it down. His legacy wasn't about building an empire that stood forever. It was about a moment, a single shining act of defiance. People still talk about Thermopylae because it's the ultimate underdog story, 300 against millions. He became a martyr, someone who died for a cause, and that made him immortal in a way. Think about it. Movies, books, even comics, they all love Leonidas because his bravery feels bigger than life. His impact wasn't in laws or cities. It was in hearts. He showed that one man, one choice, can ripple through history. That's a legacy of glory, etched in blood and honor, even if Sparta itself fell. Now let's turn to Spartacus. His legacy is a different kind of fire. When he led his slave army against Rome, he didn't win in the end. Rome crushed his rebellion after 2 years, and Spartacus died, probably in battle, though we don't know exactly how. But here's the amazing part. He didn't need to win to change things. His fight inspired revolts for centuries after. Slaves, workers, anyone crushed by power looked at Spartacus and thought, if he could fight, so can I. He became a symbol of rebellion, a spark that kept lighting new fires. Rome stayed strong. Its empire rolled on for hundreds of years. But Spartacus planted an idea. Freedom isn't just for the powerful. That idea grew from ancient times to modern revolutions. People still march with his name because he showed the weak could roar. Spartacus's legacy isn't about one big moment like Leonidas's. It's about a movement. He didn't have a homeland to defend or a crown to wear. He had a dream, and he shared it with thousands. His impact was in the ideology he left behind. Fight for what's right, even if you start with nothing. Unlike Leonidas, who became a statue of honor, Spartacus became a voice for the voiceless. Rome tried to erase him, crucifying his followers along roads, but they couldn't kill his story. He's immortalized not in victory, but in struggle. Think about that. A slave with a kitchen knife made an empire tremble, and we're still talking about him. That's a legacy that doesn't just sit still. It moves, it pushes, it challenges. Let's grab some English to carry their legacies forward. Icon is a symbol people admire, like Leonidas to Spartans. Martyr is someone who dies for a belief. Both fit that in their way. Impact is the change they made, and ideology is the big idea they stood for. Immortalize means living forever in stories. Try these phrases: live forever in history, Leonidas' glory, or spark a revolution, Spartacus' gift. These words let you talk about their power. Leonidas' legacy is a patriot's shield, strong and still. Spartacus's is a rebel's torch, burning bright and wild. One gave his life to protect a land that faded, the other lost his to shake an empire that stood. Leonidas inspires us to stand firm. Spartacus dares us to break free. Which legacy hits harder? That's your call. Their stories didn't end with them. They live in us, in every fight for something bigger. Next, we'll wrap up with some English lessons to make you sound as brave as they were. Stay tuned. Part 7. English Learning Focus. We've battled through Spartacus and Leonidas' stories, and now it's time to sharpen your English skills with what we've learned. These warriors didn't just fight with swords and spears, they gave us words and phrases to sound brave and strong. So, let's dive into some grammar, vocabulary, and a fun quiz to make you feel like a hero in English. First up, let's talk about grammar patterns. One big one is past tense verbs. They tell us what happened back then. Think about Leonidas. He defended his land at Thermopylae. Defended is past tense. It's done. It's history. Or Spartacus. He revolted against Rome. Revolted shows action from long ago. We also heard how Leonidas inspired Greece and Spartacus inspired slaves. Inspired is another past tense verb, showing how their actions touched others. When you talk about these heroes, past tense is your weapon. It puts you right in their time. Another grammar trick is superlatives, words that show the best or most of something. We've asked, who was the bravest? Bravest is a superlative. It compares Spartacus and Leonidas and picks the top. Or think about Leonidas's plan. It was the most strategic move at Thermopylae. Most strategic says it was smarter than anything else. Superlatives help you argue your point, like saying Spartacus was the most resourceful leader with his vine ropes and raids. They're easy to make. Add est to short words like brave or most to longer ones like strategic. Try it. Say something was the fastest, the strongest, the wildest. You'll sound like a warrior picking a winner. Now let's revisit some key phrases we've sprinkled through the story. They're short, punchy, and perfect for sounding bold. Take against all odds. It's how both Spartacus and Leonidas fought when everything was stacked against them. You can use it too. I passed my test against all odds. Or how about a legacy that lasts? Leonidas's stand and Spartacus's rebellion still echo today, and this phrase makes anything sound epic. Say it. She built a legacy that lasts. These phrases aren't just cool. They stick in your head and make your English pop. We've also had hold the line from Leonidas and break the chains from Spartacus. Shout them out. They're battle cries you can use to cheer someone on. Let's recap some vocabulary too. It's been sneaking in all along. Words like defiance, saying no to fear, or unity, standing together, came from their stories. Rebellion and sacrifice tell what they did, while gladiator and phalanx paint the picture. You've got over 30 words now. from ambush to immortalize. They're not just for history, they're for you. Talk about a friend's loyalty or a tough day's persistence. These words make you sound strong and smart, like you fought alongside Spartacus and Leonidas. Time for an interactive quiz. Let's test what you've learned. I'll say a sentence with a blank, and you fill it in with today's words or phrases. Ready? First one, Leonidas made a Edbrow stand at Thermopylae. What fits? Last. Leonidas made a last stand at Thermopylae. Next, Spartacus led a bees against Rome. Try revolt. Spartacus led a revolt against Rome. How about this? His men showed Sao when they shouted, "I am Spartacus." Go with unity. His men showed unity. One more. Leonidas was the king Sparta ever had. Pick a superlative. Leonidas was the bravest king Sparta ever had. See? You're already wielding these words like a pro. Pause the video, try a few more in your head, and feel the power. This English focus isn't just about rules. It's about telling stories like Spartacus and Leonidas did. Past tense puts you in the action. Superlatives crown your heroes, and phrases give you their spirit. You've got tools now to talk about bravery, battles, or anything big. Want to say someone's resourceful like Spartacus? Or disciplined like Leonidas? You can. These warriors didn't back down, and now your English won't either. Next, we'll wrap up with a conclusion. Decide your winner and get ready to shout it out. We've marched through the epic tales of Spartacus and Leonidas, and now it's time to bring it all together. Two warriors, two kinds of bravery. Whose courage wins your heart? Let's look back one last time. Leonidas, the Spartan king, stood like a rock at Thermopylae. With just 300 men, he faced a Persian army of millions, shouting, "Come and take them." He didn't flinch, didn't run. He held the line. His bravery was about standing firm, a king sacrificing himself to protect his homeland. Picture him there, shield up, spear ready, gray hair under his helmet, fighting at 60 years old. That's not just strength, that's iron will. He died, but his stand gave Greece a chance to fight another day. His legacy shines as a symbol of honor and patriotism, a story that says, never give up, even when it's hopeless. Can you feel that? It's the kind of courage that makes you want to stand tall, no matter what's coming. Then there's Spartacus, the slave who shook an empire. He started with nothing. No army, no crown, just a kitchen knife and a dream. He broke free from chains, united 70,000 slaves, and defied Rome for 2 years. When his men shouted, "I am Spartacus!" it wasn't just a moment, it was a roar of unity. His bravery was about breaking free, turning weakness into strength with every ambush and raid. Imagine him climbing cliffs with vine ropes, striking Roman camps at night, never letting Rome rest. He didn't win in the end, Rome crushed him, but his fight sparked revolts for centuries. His legacy burns as a call to rise up, a voice for anyone who's ever been held down. That's wild, right? A slave with nothing made the mightiest empire tremble, and we're still cheering for him. So, what's the difference? Leonidas proved bravery means standing firm, a shield against the storm. Spartacus showed bravery means breaking free, a fire that spreads. One was a king who died for glory, the other a slave who lived for freedom. Leonidas's story ends with a last stand, a single blazing moment that echoes forever. Spartacus's story stretches long, a rebellion that keeps inspiring. Which style is yours? Are you the type to hold your ground like Leonidas, steady and strong? Or do you burn like Spartacus, pushing forward no matter the odds? Maybe it's both. Bravery isn't one size fits all. These warriors teach us it's about facing fear, whether you're defending what's yours or fighting for what's right. Let's make this fun. Time to pick a side. If you're Team Sparta, smash that like button for Leonidas. His discipline, his honor, it's unbeatable. If you're Team Slave Army, hit us with a fire emoji for Spartacus. His heart, his grit, that's unstoppable. Don't stop there. Jump in the comments and tell us your winner and why. Did Leonidas' sacrifice win you over? Or was it Spartacus' rebellion that got you pumped? We want to hear it. And if you love this battle, subscribe now. Next week, we're throwing Cleopatra and Boudica into the ring. 2 queens, 2 epic fights. You won't want to miss it. Before we go, let's think about today. Leonidas and Spartacus lived thousands of years ago, but their courage still hits hard. So, here's a question. Would modern heroes use Leonidas' discipline or Spartacus' creativity? Picture a leader today. Maybe they'd plan like Leonidas, steady and smart, or adapt like Spartacus, fast and fearless. What do you think? Drop your answer in the comments. Another one to chew on. What's harder, fighting for your country like Leonidas or fighting for freedom like Spartacus? One's about protecting what you love. The other's about chasing what you dream. There's no right answer, just your answer. Tell us what moves you. This journey's been a blast. Battles, bravery, and over 30 English words to make you sound like a warrior. Leonidas and Spartacus didn't just fight, they showed us what guts look like. So stand up, speak out, and let their stories push you to be bold. Thanks for watching, you legends. See you next time for more action in English.
Thanks for watching English Starline. Subscribe now to keep learning English through the amazing stories of famous lives.